Maybe Black Mesa. That was a joke, haha, bad chance.
So I figure the best place to start off is probably going to be the very basics. Let's first look at what's included in the box when you buy this guy. In the box you will get 2 pieces and a set of instructions. The 2 pieces are 1. The Griffin Powerjolt Reserve unit itself, and 2. The rechargeable battery that's included. Now let's take a look at what's not included in the box that you will need to function this unit. You'll obviously need an iPod or an iPhone. iPod Touch, iPod Nano, iPhone, or an iPod Classic will work fine. Anything with the pin set adapter in the bottom should generally work. iPod 2nd generation and 1st generation for the Touch will work. The Nano, the 4th and 3rd generation are guaranteed to work, and the iPhone 3G and 3GS are guaranteed to work. The Classic's newest generation is also guaranteed to work, but not anything below that. That's up to discretion. 100% guarantee? Unfortunately not. Did a little research into it and I couldn't find out if these were or were not compatible. So you'll need the iPod or iPhone. You will also need, in most cases, the iPod dock to USB connector cable. This cable is not necessary but is recommended. We'll get into that a little bit later. So the first thing I'd like to do is look at the basic functions of this unit. Obviously, as you can see here, it plugs directly into the DC outlet or cigarette lighter in your vehicle, and that's the only place that it's able to plug into. I'd just like to look over this guy in a little bit more detail before we continue. So, let's take a quick peek at how this functions, both the battery and the main unit themselves. The main unit is what we'll observe first. On the main unit, you'll see that we have a few components that are extremely obvious. Firstly, we have this large piece up here, which is where the battery comfortably sits. You'll notice 2 silver bearings on either side. You can ignore those for the moment. You'll also notice a USB port at the bottom. That's what that cable we were discussing earlier is for. It will allow you to charge your iPod while the battery is charging and you're in a vehicle. That component isn't a necessity. The cable is not included in your box. Consider that and remember it. Alright, so we have a basic idea of the structure and working of this guy. It's very easy, very self-explanatory. So let's look at the battery that's included with the kit. So the battery is a separate unit here, and you'll notice the 2 bearings on here. Again, ignore that for the time being. We'll discuss that in a moment. You'll notice that it has the pin connector for the iPod set. That's also something we'll discuss in a moment, but very obviously just clips into the bottom of the iPod. You'll then notice that there is a button on the front with a battery symbol on it. Pressing that button when the device is plugged into another unit or into the charger will indicate approximately how much battery life is left by lighting up 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 of the 5 available LEDs. Pretty simple, again, very self-explanatory. So next I'd like to deal with these bearings on the end. What do those do? Well, it's actually something you'll notice right away when you get this unit. Now, you have to plug this in here to charge and detach it to stop the charge. However, the actual unit here isn't plugging into anything. This is kind of the funky thing you'll notice, is that the battery never plugs into anything inside of here. If you look in there, all the charging is done through the bearings on there. Those bearings are magnetic, so when I let go, it's going to snap right in, and those bearings are going to hold it together and pass the charge between each other there. So the bearings in here and the bearings in here are magnetic. Little note on this guy, if you try to put the battery in upside down, they are set in such a way that it will push it away slightly, as the magnets will not attract each other in that position. However, they will grasp each other quickly in this position. So, now that we kind of have an understanding of how the unit itself works in charging the battery and in plugging into your vehicle, let's take an observation of how the unit interacts with your iPod. I'd like to firstly look at how the unit interacts with the iPod without using the rechargeable detachable battery. So we're going to look at this USB connector port here. The running of this port is very simple. All you need is your iPod or iPhone, and all you need is your USB to iPod docking cable and your unit itself, as well as a power source to plug it into. So, again, this is not a mandatory setup, this is an optional setup. If you do, however, choose to do this optional setup, you simply plug the USB in, as you would in any home PC, just like so. This would be plugged into your vehicle, or you can optionally plug it in after this process is done. Then you would take this simply with the Griffin logo, it'll say Griffin facing towards the screen of whichever iPod you're using, and push in until you hear it click and connect. Generally though, the logo is facing towards the screen on most, if not all, cables available for the iPod, simply for simplicity's sake and so people don't break their iPods by cramming their cable in the wrong way. So once we've done this and the unit is either plugged into a vehicle or you plug it into the vehicle now, your iPod will light up and start charging as it normally would if it were plugged into a PC. So now I'd like to observe how the battery itself interacts with the iPod unit. This is probably the most important aspect of this device. Though this is a very important aspect in the sense of charging the battery, its connection to the iPod itself is more of a secondary option, really. Whereas this is the primary function that is provided by this device and the reason that most people would go to buy it. Now, you'll notice that when this isn't plugged into a device, I actually can't check my battery charge. So what I'm going to have to do here is I have an iPod which is dead. I can't activate it, and it barely has enough charge to boot up. So I'm going to go ahead and just let this guy boot up here quick. And so the video is going to cut, and I'm just going to wait until that charger boots up, and I'm going to bring you guys back in. Okay, so it took it a little while to boot up, but I've now got it to the point where it's asking me to enter my passcode. Now, I'm not entirely certain if you guys as viewers will be able to see this, but in my corner there you can see the battery is bloody near empty, unfortunately. Now, this was done deliberately, obviously, for this video, so I'm going to go ahead and just punch my passcode in here. Once it's come out, you'll notice that it's now giving me my battery 20% low battery warning. I'm going to go ahead and just dismiss that warning for the time being. And now what I'm going to do is just simply take the device. I'm going to take my iPod in this hand, the battery in this hand, and with the battery logo facing up, again, logo's always facing towards the screen, I'm just going to go ahead and click that in. You'll notice right away that my iPod indicated that it detected a device plugged into it. And if I bring it back up to you guys here, you can clearly see the charging symbol indicated on my iPod. Now, what's interesting about this device is that I now have the option to either use my iPod with the current battery charge, which, again, I can check with the indication of these LEDs down here. As you can see, I have just probably over half battery available on here. So, I can now either use my iPod to go ahead and perhaps open up my photos and browse those. I can either do that or simply lock my iPod and set it aside. This battery will actually continue charging the iPod and allow my iPod to regain its charge. So if I want to use this free of my iPod, I am capable of doing that with a slight recharge on my battery. Now, the only thing to note for iPod Touch second generation and first generation users, and for most Nano users, is that this guy is a little bit of a wide body at the base where your headphone jack is. The problem with this is that I can no longer use headphones. Just consider that, guys. If you're ever plugging this guy in, don't plan on listening to some music at the same time, because as soon as you plug this in, you no longer have your headphone access. However, for iPhone users specifically, this can add an extra 2 hours of talk time. So in that situation where your battery's just about dead and you've got this guy hiding in your pocket and you're talking to somebody you really need to continue talking to for whatever reason, you can go ahead and pop that right in and continue with your conversation, absolutely no problem. So what are the pros with this device? Well, I think the biggest pro, obviously, is that you have this portable battery that can add 16 hours of music or more to a charge on your iPod and plenty more idle time, more talk time on your iPhone, and more web browsing for those who use it excessively on their 3G or wireless networks. So this is a great addition to your iPod's battery life. What I really didn't like about the device myself is that as an iPod Touch second generation user, when I plug this in, I no longer have the freedom to use my headphones as the port is blocked underneath here, and even the sharpest angled headphones couldn't quite reach it, unfortunately. Another thing that I found a little bit irritating was that I can't check the charge of my device when it's detached from a powered device, which basically means that this battery is unable to power its own LEDs just to indicate a charge that I have when I slip it out of my pocket. That was a misfortune and not too pleasing. Another thing that was a little bit irritating was that not even a cheap cable was included with this. This is great for taking on flights with you. Make sure you fully charge it before you head out. And if you're on a flight listening to a little music or idling your iPod in the background, you can freely plug this guy in and have that little bit extra juice that'll last your flight, hopefully. For iPhone users, this would be an alternate to the Mophie Juice Pack or the Mophie Juice Pack Air, which would give you more battery power but in a larger package. So that's it for today's episode. If you have any questions about the device, where you can find it, products, or anything else, feel free to email me at the email included in the sidebar, whichever side it appears on. If you have any questions about the show or would like to suggest any future devices or topics that I could discuss on the show, feel free to email at the same address and I'd be quickly able to respond to any emails that I receive. Please allow me about a week at most to respond. Usually should be faster than that. Thanks.